Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that likes to claim it's a podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Bruford, joined by your other host, Fintan Costello. Fintan, hello.
Hello, John.
Hi. I'm saying that the podcast likes to claim to be a podcast. There seems to be some self-determination in the world now.
As opposed to, well, it's a podcast, it's a YouTube channel, it's a newsletter, it's many things to many people.
That's a good shout, that is. But how would people find these different, places where we are?
They could go to thegamblingfiles.com.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a nice place.
Which has all the episodes there and all the links to Spotify and Apple and YouTube and little newsletter subscribey thing.
Fabulous.
They could check the LinkedIn page.
Oh, yeah.
They could connect with us on LinkedIn. If they want to. There's the Twitter, which we always forget about.
Yeah, we totally do.
We're not Twitter people. There's lots of ways they can connect. We're very social people.
Very social.
Easy to find.
Yeah,
easy to
pretty
spot
much.
in the crowd as well.
Except I'm not on Facebook. Are you on Facebook?
It kind of watching my mum get radicalized on Facebook is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen in my life.
Mum, radicalized and funny are not three words I ever thought I would hear in a sentence again. And Facebook. Has she become a Daily Mail reader?
I'm not even going to go into it. It's poor Meghan Markle. That poor girl. It's awful.
Okay, but so I deactivated my Facebook account, which meant that I could still use Messenger.
Yes, because they had that whole EU thing or some bullshit or something.
Well, that worked pretty nicely for me because I just got fed up of seeing people just being assholes to each other.
Yeah, that's fair.
But what I've learned today is that what I now don't, because I'm not living in Ludlow, I'm living 20 miles away, and I really don't bump into anybody much anymore. What I'm finding is that I'm not finding out when people die. So Facebook is the new obituary page in the newspaper. And I found out that two of my old school friends died last year. I'm not a fucking clue.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, sad times. I mean, weren't exactly very old.
No.
But interesting the way that it's not just the way that news travels. Now, of course, it's going to travel with social media, but it's that now that's almost the only way it travels because literally nobody is fucking contacting me to say, hey, did you hear? Out of sight, out of mind, I guess.
Yeah, but then you've still got Facebook Messenger? Or
no, because I actually finally deleted the entire thing.
Ah, okay.
I finally did the whole
account. I use Facebook Messenger more than anything else, but even then it's just to talk to two people who don't use anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly used it for just sharing pictures of the kids with Fern when I had them. It's like, look, they're alive. Like little proof of life photos. Yeah. Look, see, we're in a different environment to the previous photo, and some of the clothes have changed.
There's vegetables on that plate.
Yeah. Under the marshmallows, but they are there. It's a bit funny. But then I guess I'm distanced from what would have been the natural everyday grapevine of bumping into people in the street or whatever.
That's really where it is, yeah.
So basically, I'm double ostracized, I think.
Fair enough.
And I don't know.
We lead very different lives, John.
We do, Fintan. Not least the amount that you spend on hair care.
Glossy. Yeah, it's just this is not something I'd have ever thought about.
But then I'm still living quite close to my hometown, aren't I?
I suppose you've got friends.
But this is why you're a successful chairman, and I'm not.
I'm laughing because it's that. No, it's true. It's a good point. It's a good point.
What about being a chairman?
No, friends. Yeah, it's a good point. It's very different lifestyle. Very different lifestyle.
But this episode, we recorded this one a couple of weeks ago, but it was going to go out. No, but it was going to go out, and then I had my muscle issues, and it didn't go out. But we approached quite out of the blue. We approached Kyle Scott and Jason Ziernicki of Herd Capital, because I've been reading their newsletter and really enjoying it. It's quite different. And so we're joined by those two to have what feels to me like it's a really quite a frank conversation, isn't it?
What I love about the lads is they clearly know what they're doing. They're smart and they're willing to talk about it.
Yeah, not afraid to have an opinion.
Not afraid to have an opinion. And it was one of those conversations where by the end of it, I'm like, oh my God, how have I never talked to these guys before? And
yeah,
we could totally be friends, kind of thing.
It's like that scene in Step Brothers where he's like, did we just become best friends? It's exactly like that scene.
They mightn't have felt like that, but it's how I felt.
I was going to show my tattoo of them, but I'll hold back now for a future. Just if they come back on, I'll show the tattoo. One on each buttock, and you're in the middle yawning.
Wait. No, really cool guys. So we talk about SEO, we talk about Google, we talk about the big Google updates, particularly with the media partnerships. We talk about what the lads are doing, what they're doing next. And yeah, it's just fun. They're cool guys.
I don't think Cobra Kai was mentioned even once.
That's how good the conversation was.
Yeah, seriously. Not that that's a guide to a bad one. It's just, I just assumed they would naturally watch Cobra Kai because we're best friends.
Yeah. BFFs.
Anyway, wait, whoa. Well,
wait.
Why don't you chip in with talk of our benevolent sponsors?
So we've got two benevolent corporate sponsor overlords.
We do.
One is Clarion Gaming. IGB Amsterdam's coming up soon. Book tickets. Yeah, I'm already getting meeting requests. for Amsterdam.
Interestingly, I'm not.
It's fine. So sort your Amsterdam tickets out. It's the last one in Amsterdam for the summertime, or this version of it anyway. And then we'll all see each other in Barcelona 2025, which is coming soon.
But then IGB will be in London in 25, won't it?
I know, it's all over the place.
It's getting very confusing.
It's it's just a different year. And then the wonderful and smart and fantastic Optimove, who do great things with your CRM. Basically, sort your CRM out. Automates the life out of it and makes you more money. Get the demo. Yeah. Get the demo.
Seriously, I know we say this a lot, but we say it a lot because we had the demo and we were like, holy shit, that's amazing.
I don't have a casino, but I'd still buy it. It's that good.
It's like, to me, right, if it were a TV show, it would be Mr. In Between. The show that you haven't seen, but you must see.
I've seen it.
I know you've seen it. I've seen it too.
I've dropped it into a lad's WhatsApp group and changed numerous lives.
I hope they were grateful.
My social score improved dramatically by dropping in Mr. In Between.
Excellent. I'm very pleased for you. I think, it's a similar thing with Optimove. No worries. Yeah. Similar thing with Optimove, where you can sort of say, we're telling you about it because we actually do believe in it. It's the Mr. In Between of the CRM software world. And anybody wanting to watch Mr. In Between, certainly in the UK and the US, I think it's on Disney Plus.
It is on Disney Plus. It's yeah,
and it's so worth it. But anyway, before we get into discussing vajankles and all kinds of strange shit, we should really meet Kyle Scott and Jason Ziernicki of Herd Capital.
enjoy.
We're joined by this week's, I don't know, only guest, maybe, I don't know, I can't remember. We just plow through people and use their lifeless husks as kindling on the fire of glory that is the Gambling Files podcast. We're joined by partners of Herd Capital. That's Herd, Herd. Well, the spectacularly titled Jason Ziernicki and Kyle Scott. Kyle, your name's a lot simpler. I can't help but notice.
Well, it is and it isn't. So there's a story here. So Scott is actually my middle name. My last name is Laskowski, which you would have had a time with. But a decade plus ago, I started writing with my middle name, and I was trying to hide from my bosses at my real job, and Scott stuck. It's easier to spell and remember, so here I am.
Wow.
So
yeah, I like the story so much.
With a fraud.
I went out of focus for a second. That's amazing. So say your real surname again.
Laskowski.
Where is that
Very
from?
Polish.
I was thinking Polish.
It's Polish.
And where's Ziernicki from, Jason? Do you know where that's from?
Poland.
Poland.
It's Poland.
Poland. You got two Polacks who bumped into each other. And,
Did
somehow,
you know each other in the old country, or? And you've really lost the accent. It's really spectacular.
It is.
We're both mostly Italian, though. That's the crazy part.
What?
Oh yeah, I'm an Eastern Bloc mutt with some Italian and German. It's somebody in my family really got around. Not sure who, but
I could do some research. I know some people. I know some people who get around.
Agreed.
But Fintan, despite his amusing name, is Irish.
What gave it away? Was it the Fintan?
Maybe. But you know, like Fintan's a pretty common name in Ireland, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty common name, full stop. It's not an unusual name.
True, that is true.
And what I find really hilarious, have you ever looked at the transcripts of this podcast that the software generates? Like your name and my name get fucking butchered in a different way every episode. Fucking brilliant.
For sure. The some of my friends back in the old kind of Nokia predictive text days, it would autocorrect my name to Dintbo. Dintbo.
Because it's far more likely to be Dintbo than Fintan. Of course, that's what you meant to type.
There's definitely some old friends who still call me Dintbo just because that's just what it is now.
I had a friend who back in the early days of Microsoft Word trying to fucking fix everything. His name is Garth Sumpter, and his name was always autocorrected to Girth Sphincter. Because that's way more likely.
Fintan, is Nokia the same as Nokia?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Man, I'd have thought you Polish dudes would be right up there with the Finnish pronunciations.
We can't pronounce anything. We mispronounce just about everything.
It's believe me, it gets really bad when there's a few beers, because when you grow up in the Philadelphia, Southeast New Jersey area, our accent becomes hideous. The words of water instead of water, everything it just becomes really bad.
I spent a few days around Philadelphia, and as far as place names go, there's loads of very old English place names, but nobody understood a fucking word I was saying. So I needed to get to Malvern, right? Now Malvern is very close to where I live now. It's
Malvern.
So I'm like, can I get
went
a
to
ticket?
Malvern Prep.
Can I get a ticket to Malvern? And they're like, mind you, like the first time I ever went to Vegas, right? I went to the desk. This was at the Aladdin, which is now Planet Hollywood, I think, or was.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably something else now. It's probably not even there anymore. And I went to the front desk and I said to the lady, "Excuse me, I can't see a kettle in my room. Do you have a kettle I could use, please?" And she looked at me. She's like, "Kettle? Yeah, a kettle. I want to make some tea." Kettle. I'm like, fuck. Right. It's like a plastic tube and it's got a heating element in the bottom and you use it to boil water. Oh, a kettle. Fuck me. I didn't get a kettle in the end.
No, you didn't.
Jesus.
Part of it is the accent. I mean, but besides us here in Philly talking like where you have a mouthful of marbles, I have this theory. We all spend so much time online now that I think we all read a lot more than we used to. Like maybe not books, but social media. Like a lot of our intake is just seeing stuff on a screen. And when you encounter new words, you read them. And I know for me in my head, I will come up with a pronunciation. And then the first time I actually hear that word or speak it to someone, I realize I've been saying it wrong in my head. It happens a lot with like new brands, new apps, like, because you're in your own little world
all
like
the time.
90% of the day.
Between John and my wife correcting me, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Fintan didn't know he knew the word hirsute, but didn't know how to say it, which is hilarious because he is hirsute.
I don't even know what you're saying.
I still don't know if it's an insult or not.
Hairy. It just means hairy.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay.
Can there be the pursuit of hirsute?
There we go. Jason bringing it.
I feel the can.
There's a subreddit for that, Jason.
Yes, my three hirsute companions.
So,
shiny ones. Yeah.
Jason, Kyle, for people that don't know you, what's the quick summary of who you are, where you're from, and what you did?
Kyle, you go ahead. You're much more succinct.
There we go. Oh, look at this.
Okay,
Scrabble
I'll
game.
do my best. So, people in this space, what we did was formed one of the largest betting affiliates here in the U.S., and we sold it off to XL Media at the end of 2020. We came together, working together, probably about 2 or 3 years earlier. My background was in digital media, and I ran a local media sports site here in Philadelphia and the surrounding area. And Jason has a very deep SEO background, particularly in the DFS space, going back to like kind of the middle of the last decade. And when gambling was legalized, or PASPA was overturned here in the US, Jason and I came together actually at the behest of someone from DraftKings, and they said, hey, you guys might work well together. I had this really big audience here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Jason had this sort of deep background in the affiliate space with the DFS companies and SEO. And we're like, hey, if we could put our audience skills together, his SEO ability, we might be able to form a pretty big affiliate here. So that's what we did. And now we were with XL Media for a couple of years after they bought us, and we're back out on our own now and reinvesting some of that money and doing some consulting and advisory work along the way.
It's probably a good time to mention, Fintan, that podcast sponsorships are available. I'm not joking, Fintan.
I know you're not joking.
So, there is a, I don't know if there's publicly, I don't think we ever said this before. So breaking news. The person who's no longer employed at DK, who recommended that we get together, I think one of the reasons they thought it would work, or they wanted it to work, was they were, I think, getting pushed around a little bit by some of the current affiliates. And the affiliates had a lot of power at that moment.
Mm.
So I think they thought it was advantageous for have another affiliate to come into the marketplace and kind of knock them off their perch a bit, which we shockingly, were able to do because we took the local model of affiliate and Crossing Broad in Philadelphia,
Mm.
and then we took that to other areas, Chicago, Denver, and we're able to repeat that kind of like an agency model that we're all seeing today in the news with Google on a smaller scale at that time. And then we did end up working with much larger publishers on a national scale when we were at Excel.
Yeah, I'd well believe that. I remember the first time I went to G2E when we were launching in the US, and it was a really strange meeting operators because it was very standoffish. Where like outside of America, it's like instant best friends. Let's go to the bar. Let's get a drink. It was this very standoffish thing, and it took us a couple of meetings to find our rhythm. And then we would literally start the conversation by saying, "Hey, this is us. We're not," and I won't name the competitor. "We're not that company.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually looking for a proper partnership and to create something that works." And then just everybody relaxed, and it became a very different conversation. And it was just so bizarre to see the difference in just like they were ready for a battle kind of thing, rather than like we were just dying, like we'd have just done anything for a tracking link. Like we were just very, like our expectations were very low walking into these conversations. But I completely agree. I think there was definitely a near monopoly situation at one point, which is no longer there.
which now is returning in the United States on the affiliate side.
In a way, yeah.
With
So
Better Collective, yeah.
Yeah, you think so?
Well, it appears so. I mean, they've purchased many properties. Katina is struggling mightily. I won't comment on Excel. Gambling.com, if you're basing it on stock value, stock's been cut in half in the last few months, and they do have some good properties that I think could probably do well even in the current environment because it's an evergreen. Even if the big publishers fall off, their evergreens come up. So I do feel like Better Collective is certainly, the best positioned to move forward. They spent a lot to get there.
They did.
So, but it does feel that way, that they're definitely in the pole position for a ways to come. Yeah.
Yeah. So I should declare I sold to gambling.com and I am a shareholder, so I'm completely biased.
No worries.
I read his bio and I saw long gambling and I'm like, I'm gonna be very careful.
No, look, it's a big internet and there's more to it than just the US market. But I think it was one of the things that's really kind of jumped out over the last few weeks is the big Google changes to the newspaper partnerships. And I think it'd be really interesting to get your opinion from both of you. I think for me, kind of what annoyed me over the last few weeks was the near gloating from a lot of like SEOs about, this website's down, ha ha ha. And it was kind of like it felt like gloating. And it also felt like that kind of classic overreaction to something that's happened when realistically any experienced SEO has been through like 50 of these updates. And it's one of those situations of here was a tactic that was working really well for a really long time. This tactic no longer works. And then it's just like a game of what's the next tactic? And everybody, in The Wire, they talk about changing up. Everybody changes up. And the big guys who've been doing this for, over a decade type thing, change up faster than everybody else or figure it out faster and readjust. So for me, with the newspapers, I see it as like this is just a blip and everything will kind of shake. Like obviously gambling.com publicly, restated their earnings. It's a lot of revenue. But it's also like fine, I think. It's kind of my feel. What do you guys think? Where am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think you are actually, and I think it's a lot worse for these media publisher partners that were capturing,
Oh, for sure.
some of them eight figures in revenue in aggregate, nine for sure over these last few years, and that is a substantial sum of money for maybe a couple of dozen legacy media companies that are otherwise struggling, and I think. The affiliates will largely be okay in aggregate because even though over the last year or two you've had all of these niche sites getting kind of hurt in many cases by these helpful content updates, and it sort of has favored these larger legacy brands with the high domain authorities, and then so everybody in the space continued to kind of reach for these partnerships and pay to lock into these partnerships. And now that Google is almost like with one hand across the table wiped out those partnerships. Again, we're out of the weeds, but just from looking, it seems like a lot of the organic um, sites in the betting affiliate space have just popped right back to the top, right? And so the individual affiliate companies, and I think gambling.com has probably done a good job of this if they've at least been investing in these market specific sites. Now, whether any one of those will work out or won't work out, I can't really say. But I think the larger affiliates who had been investing in their owned and operated sites in parallel with chasing the easy money, which they should have with these partnerships, because it was like a ticket to the top of the search results, they will be okay. So you will still have the money insofar as it was going to flow to the affiliates. I still think it's going to flow there, but these media partnerships, these media companies are kind of screwed. I think they were relying on not only the gambling affiliate revenue, but they were doing this in many other verticals as well.
That's the
And
key bit. It's not just the gambling.
you're going to see a lot of writers lose jobs. Like that's my prediction. And that's kind of gross to gloat about from the SEO folks because, for better or worse, the traditional journalists were struggling as a business model. And now I think a lot of people probably don't realize how much these like newspapers that were still doing some level of reporting were paying them with some sort of affiliate revenue.
For sure. Because you're completely right, because it's not just the gambling, like the betting fold or whatever it is being hit. It's like coupons, banking, credit cards. Like there's a lot of affiliate revenue, gadgets, these kind of things. There's a huge amount of money being generated by some of these networks that's no longer there, and it's very hard to supplement it with CPM kind of banner ad impressions, which is just not going to fill the gap. But when I look around, though, you do see some newspapers still in the mix. So it feels like it's not it's a classic Google update where it's sort of done the job, and then there's a few exceptions, and then it's a game of will the exceptions last, or is this a blip? Go on, sorry, Kyle, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, sorry. It seems the word on the street, and I haven't looked closely enough to see how accurate this is, but it's really aiming at the third part where it's clear that a third party is creating this content. That's where Google seems to have found the low hanging fruit, the obvious stuff. And I know with our old company and some of the others, the same byline appears across a dozen, 15 different websites. That was real easy for Google to identify. The brands that were maybe investing or making it appear as if they were investing in their own content and their writers were vetting these, whether they're betting apps or gardening tools, right? If their own editorial staff was creating these reviews and articles, Google seems to have favored those better. So I think the next logical jump will be these media brands either hiring people to do this, right, under their own masthead, or outsourcing it to third parties, but putting these people under their masthead to try to trick Google. So that's the next step in the game.
I completely agree that totally feels like if you're the newspaper owner, it's like, well, it's not on the betting folder anymore, and then they've just got to take the gamble of, do we just stick it on the sports folder and just get it over with? Do we take that risk? And I'd say there's a few newspaper editors sweating right now as they figure that out. And
I'll note that our alt site, Crossing Broad here in Philly, which was more of a blog, and some of the other blogs we had partnered with, they seemed to be faring better because the content was written by people who were otherwise creating other content on the site. And Google doesn't seem to have bothered with those sites because they're sports websites. They're talking about sports betting with their own staff, and it seems to be okay and make sense by Google, which I think is fair. That's, it's a totally legitimate thing for a sports blog to write about.
Why did the newspapers never just do this themselves? I could never understand that. Like, if I was a newspaper, like, why would I need a partnership like this?
I don't think they have the manpower or the know-how at the beginning to be able to go through the licensing process and the content creation process to get going. So this was, when Kyle and I would pitch some of these, his experience of running a sports blog or that business in Philadelphia was very convincing to them. In terms of, now we're speaking to people who understand their business, they understand that we're legitimate. And then it was as simple as, hey, we will create the content, we will place the CTAs, you get paid. I mean, it came across as such an easy transaction for them. And hey, we'll even guarantee a certain monthly payment in some cases, right? So I don't think it was such a great deal. Why would they even look for an alternate avenue? And then so many affiliates are then coming to them offering it. You then would sit on a call and they would say, well, we're not talking to you any longer unless it's 70-30 our way. So they absolutely were able to get into the most advantageous situation and play it out, not have to waste, in many cases, manpower to do so, to gain that revenue.
At that kind of revenue split, it would make absolute sense to outsource it then, because it's just a no-brainer.
Yep.
The other pitch to some of the guys who maybe weren't, the biggest players is that the large affiliates get really impressive CPAs. And sometimes the pitch was, hey, you guys could do this on your own and keep 100% of the revenue. And let's just assume for a second you're as good at it as we are, but 100% of your revenue is equivalent to 60% of our revenue. So therefore, we were almost able to, with some of the smaller ones, negate the split right up front and say, listen, we could do it better than you. And oh, by the way, even if you split it with us on a dollar value, it's going to be the same as if you got 100% on your own. And that took a lot of people back in their seat. And then we would tell them, the CPAs we got versus what they've been told. And they're like, oh shit, they're right.
Yeah.
And to be clear, we were having a lot of these conversations even before we were acquired. This is all pre-XL, so that all goes to different levels, obviously, as the sports betting industry grew here, rapidly. It grew faster than anyone could have ever anticipated.
Okay, that's super interesting. And then obviously, plugging in more networks gives you more volume, which gets you better deals. So you kind of create that flywheel effect.
You got it.
Which makes it even harder for them. So, okay, finally, somebody's explained it to me in a way that makes sense. I get it now. Appreciate that. I appreciate that. So obviously, if we look at kind of, particularly for the US, or not even particularly for the US, but Google and SEO is a huge traffic driver for affiliates and gambling operators. Google itself is in flux, and it has been for the last year. It feels like constant core updates and all sorts of stuff going on and everything. And the space, if you're, it's the classic thing. If you're an SEO affiliate, you're kind of looking around and kind of, God, those PPC guys have got it easy, or those social media guys have got it easy. And everybody points at everybody and assumes they've got it easier. But you guys put out a really interesting article around influencers and kind of the evolution of kind of using influencers, particularly I think in the DFS space was a good example. Can you talk about that a bit more? Because it was fascinating.
You start, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I think Look, I've said to Jason a bunch, I'm super terrified of any business built around Google today. And I know it's super fashionable and trendy to say, oh, AI, is coming for Google. But I mean, Google has effectively, been around for a quarter of a century, right? It's been a part of all of our lives. Even if you're not in this game that we're in, everyone Googles everything. But that's only been the last couple of decades, 2.5 decades. And I think a lot of people in the SEO space are always looking at the algorithm change. Well, how does this change? How does this change? And I think not only in digital media, but maybe in the world in general, we're going to see like decades long changes happen over the course of just a couple of years with the pace of development. And if you look at what Google's doing with some of these AI results, you are just maybe very rapidly, and maybe people aren't thinking how quickly behaviors can change. Look at pre and post iPhone. Look at the world in 2010 versus 2005, right? Just that 5-year window. And things are even accelerating more now. So I'm concerned about anything related to Google, because behaviors 5 years from now can be drastically different. On the influencer side, and I would take it a step further as it relates to betting, I think the sports books have caught up to the fact that a lot of affiliates were generating significant portions of their affiliate revenue by ranking for terms that had a brand name in it. Because here in the US, there are just so many commercials, and people see them and they are familiar. They're familiar with DraftKings and FanDuel. Literally, the way I'm to school this morning, my son, he goes, hey Dad, we should download Fanatics and FanDuel. You can get money, right? My son's 8, right? He's like, so you talk about targeting the ads, first of all, but he sees it when we watch baseball games on TV. It's everywhere. So people will search for the ads. Anyway, if operators have figured this out, and I think they're understanding more that they don't want to cannibalize a customer they might otherwise get with affiliates. And that's a big piece of search. Influencers, on the other hand, can really, drive top of funnel awareness. And the influencers who are good and have loyalty with their audience can compel people to use a preferred app or service. And that, to me, feels like more value add for the operators. By the way, in any business, right? Not just betting. And you heard a lot of that at SBC a couple of weeks
ago. I think I'm going to just bring it back to the gloating part, Fintan, from our previous question, and then tie this all together if I can. I think the pending fragmentation of search and that changing world is upon us. So I think that is what has led to a lot of this, you now have to experience what we all have to experience now in the SEO world of having an uncertain future. With AI and what we're seeing with Google and the hints of OpenAI's comments, there seems to be this urge to pay to play. Why in God's name would we allow 10 businesses to just be there for free in a search result? What were we thinking all of these years? With AI, we're just going to work with a few of you. So I think the fragmentation of search is upon us, where everyone will start to look for other options. I think the words, it's funny, I'm not hearing it anymore, but it was such a buzzword years ago, was decentralized, with crypto. I think the decentralized search, that phrase will come back into the fold. Kyle and I joke about this all, not even joke about it, we say, if you can get 10% of search, that is a massive windfall of search volume.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is, so Google is wounded. They will not be able to come back from where they are right now. The fragmentation of search begins over the next few years. People begin to use other options. Other options will begin to easily be put in front of you. I forget the name of it, but they were launching a browser that did the search for you. It was very friendly, and I feel like that had
Perplexity, was it?
Was that Perplexity? I think
so.
Something. Yeah, something is just sitting on the edge to really be almost like, not a death shot to Google, but almost like that half shot where, like, man, that's the tipping point. You can see how many more options are going to be here. And, fingers crossed, by the way, as someone who prides themselves in trying to be up on everything SEO, I really do hope that happens, because the game was just ruined for thousands upon thousands of legitimate entrepreneurs and content creation people who could have easily had 500,000 people viewing their site, making good money, and it was a legitimate business that Google just said, fuck off, you're done, go find something else to do, which is insane. And
Yeah.
so tie that into the influencer. And it's funny when you bring it up, everyone goes, well, yeah, no shit. I mean, this was Instagram a few years ago, the influencer, of course. But it's because they own their audience. They have that audience, and it can't be what can be taken away, if they do something stupid. We've learned that over the years. But they own it, and then influencers now are becoming so much more savvy, and their options to work with an operator are more vast than they could have ever imagined in the years past. It's almost as if the operators will have to attempt to sign long-term agreements with influencers, which is, of course, is the influencer's dream. That's what they're looking for. In order to truly have the experience and the partnership to work off of that audience and convert them over to the product. So I think that's where we get into that flow of the mature influencer in any industry with integrity and experience is about to have a windfall.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you did the couple of things I want to build on. I think you had a really good example in the newsletter about Barstool and DraftKings. And the analogy was Barstool could do it themselves and try and make 20 million on performance, but they're building the mousetrap of, they've got to optimize every possible thing in the business and just be absolutely caning their users into the DraftKings funnel. Or take the guaranteed 10 million or whatever the number is with no performance, but then just be Barstool and pump out great content.
Yep.
And not have to second guess every offer, every T's and C's, and just be themselves, which I think if we compare it to the Penn relationship, clearly doesn't work, right? So I think there's that's actually that kind of long-term partnership I think is really interesting. I've heard of things of like a barbecue guy doing a direct-to-consumer deal with somebody, and like these people with their audiences can monetize in some really, really interesting ways, which I think is phenomenal. Your point on the AI, I think, is spot on. So something I read years ago was, if you ever want to predict the future, look at rich people. All right. So the example, rich people have chauffeurs. We've got Uber. Rich people have home cinemas. We've got Netflix. Rich people have chefs. We've all got Uber Eats or Deliveroo or whatever it is, right? So there's always that kind of analogy of we just get what the rich people get, but in a different format. With AI, it's rich people have PAs, and your AI is your PA. It gives you an answer. And then I think if you look at like what they're looking at with, I think they call it agents. So once your AI can start clicking buttons and filling in forms for you on the internet, they're going to take over a lot of the tasks that a PA, like they will summarize the email, they will give you the meeting notes, they will book the flight. And a lot of that's already there. So you can kind of immediately see where that rolls out, and it will massively change behavior, I think, in a huge way. And I think what's really interesting about it is human nature is kind of like an instant satisfaction. Like we want instant satisfaction. So Google search worked really well because we wanted the answer, and Google would give us answers, and it was better than other people's answers, and it was better collected. But when you use ChatGPT, you get the answer. I don't have to click.
Google gave you the catalog of answers. This is
potentially, like the index of, hey, do your own research. But like, and now ChatGPT and Google and stuff, like they can be confidently wrong, these AI tools, and like the hallucinations and all of these kind of things. So it's not there yet. But when you look, like I'm watching like a 12-year-old use ChatGPT, he's got a very different internet than I have. And I think there's a really, I do agree. I think it'll be it'll be a bit like, how would you put it? A bit like AOL, right? So AOL dial-up is still $1 billion business. So I think Jason, you talk about fragmentation. So you will still have a massive, massive search business. But the same way the kids are not on Facebook, you know, if you've talked to a teenager about Facebook, they're going to look at you like you're a caveman. The generations coming through are just going to be doing it completely differently. And so I think there's some really, really, which is why I really resonated with you guys were saying about the owning the audience, the influencer, that kind of personality type. And it doesn't have to be a Jake Paul level person. It can just be somebody knowledgeable who you can trust. And I think that creates a very interesting space. It's very hard for that person to be authentic for a long period of time. I think there's issues with it. It throws up its own challenges. But I think something like a Barstool is actually a very good model where it becomes like an umbrella brand. And there's space for, like it's like a record label, and there's space for personalities within the umbrella to scale. Or you just, you know, you're one person and you just do your thing for a really long time. So it's a super interesting thing. So, okay, that's me talking. Sorry, I'm very excited. There's two kids in their bed, two college students in their bedroom right now, and they're launching an affiliate business. How would they do it? Where would they start?
Well, I think they're starting immediately on TikTok and Instagram. In that approach, for sure. I mean, if that was if I'm in college, that would be where I would start. Even with the rumors of whatever with TikTok here in the States, I don't think it's ever going to go away. They'll just divest. I am seeing it more clearly than I ever have in the past, because this is not a promotional thing. I started like a video game newsletter, right? And for a new college football game that's coming out here, and I had to dive into YouTube and Instagram and a little bit of TikTok before, which I really wasn't that comfortable doing in years past, and I've seen it, and I just cannot believe the reach and the ability that these young kids have, and the trust and subscriber depth and numbers that are just obscene. And that would be where I would go. And what's even more funny about it is the conversations that Kyle and I had over the years about where to place links, CTAs, things of that nature. This looks like the conversations of a caveman. No one cares about that now. It's the guy. Like we know of a brand that's doing extremely well on YouTube for a DFS site, sending tens of thousands of FTDs. And all he does is cover a video game. 30 seconds in, he does a break, talks about his thing, and then he talks about how he gives picks for that thing on his Twitter account. And he has roughly 250,000 followers on YouTube. Now, I'm not saying it's that easy. Just go get. I mean, he's obviously compelling and and energetic. But that would be where I would start to own that audience, and then I would try to get a little more information from them. Try to get them into a newsletter, have their email address. Get some state information for them. Complete the reel into the shore from the ocean. But that would be where I would go.
Because I suppose I'm glad you've added the how do I get their user information, because if you are on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you're still playing in you're still building your business in somebody else's garden.
Yep.
And different algorithms, but they can go against you. Or TikTok's got anti-gambling policies and stuff like that, so it can be very, very hard to it can be very hard to make TikTok work at scale with a brand because of their anti-gambling stance. But just two smart kids in the bedroom will figure out the same way the sex workers figure out the loopholes in TikTok. They'll figure out the loopholes as well. Allegedly.
Kyle at times would spend hours on porn sites looking for the latest information and guidance on SEO. He would say, "This is where all the advances are, Jason. We need to focus on this."
Absolutely. Well, it's
No, I wouldn't, by the way. But that industry, no, but for real, that industry is very good about taking the latest tools and technologies because they're not playing by rules to begin with, and they're willing to break everything. And there's actually a lot of like digital ingenuity that comes out of that space.
You wouldn't have video streaming.
Ingenuity.
Well, you wouldn't have video streaming. You wouldn't have video streaming without the adult websites.
Absolutely.
Affiliate management in the adult space is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like they'll pay you every Friday if you want. Like it's a different level of service. Allegedly.
Is anybody else curious as to how Fintan knows that?
Research.
Lots of research.
For sure.
A lot of friction burns.
For sure. That's why I wear glasses. It makes you blind. I can't even remember where I was now. Yeah. So building an audience on other people's platforms. You're always renting it, and then it's how you bring it into your own platform or bring in your own kind of first party data. So newsletters are obviously, email. The death of email has been proclaimed every year since ever was invented, and it's clearly not going away.
I can't fucking wait though.
It's fine. AI is just your AI bot's going to email the other AI bot, and it just, there's only going to be more emails in the future.
No, because if it's learning from the way that I work, my AI bot is going to leave all my emails unanswered and unopened.
Well, but the press releases you get in your inbox, John, your thing is just going to be completely messed up anyway. The back history it's learned from is just going to be horrific.
Maybe. Sorry.
What other ways? So, like, even things like Discord is a good platform, but somebody at Discord, I think there was something recently with like a Nintendo server or something like that got something pulled. So even that doesn't feel 100%. So are there other ways to do it, or is email the tried and tested way?
I think there are other ways, and I would take being on the platforms give you the ocean, reeling in the fish from the ocean is a great analogy here. But the platforms gives you a pretty impressive ocean, and we're testing something out with something not betting related, and we put out a single video on TikTok, and in less than 24 hours, got like 9,000 views and almost 1,000 likes, right? And it's not even that good, and you're like just like, holy cow, like this is. We've done things in gambling that we could, it's difficult to get 1,000 views, right? So the ocean is really impressive, right? If you can establish a brand, right? No one wants to be at the whim of any algorithm, be it Google or TikTok or Instagram, right? That is definitely a death knell for sure. So I think influencer, maybe a better word to use for influencer, maybe should be brands, right? The difference is brands now are things, can be people or small groups that are influential, right? There's these guys on YouTube called Dude Perfect. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They're really big here in the States. It's a bunch of bros who do like crazy sport trick shots, and they've been doing it for a decade, and they just raised tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to extend their brand, right? They're like a baby Mr. Beast, right? But Mr. Beast has a brand now. If YouTube algorithm changes, yes, he will get hurt, right? But I guarantee you he is now big enough and famous enough to compel people to follow him somewhere else. Now, you don't need to become Mr. Beast to be a brand. If you're speaking to someone in the gaming space or in the computer eyewear space, I'm holding up like my glasses I wear here at the computer, and the algorithm screws you up, as long as you're thinking ahead and trying to get people, your audience, onto other platforms, right? You're now a brand and a thought leader in that space, right? And I would say those other platforms, obviously newsletters, that's a big one, but it's getting super trendy right now. I would include, I think Discord is a good one. I would include some level of SMS, iMessage, WhatsApp, some form of more instant messaging. I think I wouldn't be surprised. The tools really aren't there. Like the newsletter space over the last 5 years has had a lot of tools that have helped you have a content audience in email that didn't really used to exist. Email was more for marketers, and now you have the Substacks and Beehives of the world are allowing you to communicate with your audience through content and email. I think you're going to see a lot of that come into the messaging space. And that's another interesting way to get people off of platforms into your database. But affiliate's different. Like affiliate a lot of times is high intent, especially for things where there's a big payout, like gambling, insurance, credit cards, travel, right? It's a lot harder to sell that stuff to someone passively when they're just consuming your other content than it is to maybe like sell somebody a hat. It's easy to get someone watching your content to be like, hey, buy my $20 hat, here's a link, than it is to sign up for a sports book so I can get $300 commission, right? So that to me is the biggest challenge. Once the influencer has these people and their attention, whether it's on a platform or off, where in the funnel, at what point do you say, click this link and spend the next 7 minutes entering your social security number and a picture of your driver's license to sign up for DraftKings? That's a challenge that I don't know if anyone has truly solved.
There's also one aspect to the influencer or brand that we have not really seen before in terms of the communication between them and their audience and how it can be instant. Running a website, how many people do you truly hear from? When you're targeting affiliate and things of that nature, they will know right away if something sucks or if their audience is not happy about something, and they can instantly pivot or change. That not only helps the influencer or brand, but also helps an operator as well. Hey, we're hearing that so and such can't play this game, or this game sucks, or they can't. The KYC in Illinois is horrendous. Those types of things. It's invaluable information that is instant.
It is that kind of. I think probably the difference. Well, not even the difference, but you're right on the instant feedback, but with social, it always feels to me like live by the sword, die by the sword.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
That if you lose the community, you can lose it really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I wouldn't say herding cats, but it's a different beast. It's a different skill set than SEO, for example, which is why it's so hard to see an SEO affiliate pivot into social or vice versa. It's a very, very different thing.
Can I just chip in and say, obviously using the phrase live by the sword, die by the sword comes from your adult content research, and Fintan is referring to a pork sword.
Jesus Christ.
But actually, we had an influencer on last year, I think.
We did.
Lovely guy called Mike Luktenberg. And what I found really interesting about Mike is that he's got this really niche subject. And I mean the most niche thing that you could have in slots. He's in, is it Ohio?
Oklahoma,
and they have and they have I can't remember what the slot type is.
OCR, I think, is the name of his channel.
Yeah, but it's unique, almost unique to that state, and there's just like a few thousand of these slots, and that's his thing. But what I think is really interesting, or the really interesting potential for influencers in this space, is the potential for much older influencers. It's not necessarily the traditional, it's some 20-something, it's some fucking asshole doing a dance on a train. And seriously, if any of those people popped up in Wales, I'm pretty sure they'd be beaten to death with a sheep. But, it's a very different profile of influencer potentially. And I think Mike's a lovely example of that, because he's gone super niche. And, I'm not dissing Mike when I say this, but he's not a young man.
He's an experienced gentleman. But then he also had a really interesting journey of having to educate the casinos and to get permission to film. And there was a whole kind of journey he's been on. If
he'd just been twerking in the lobby, he'd have been fine.
Of course.
We've all been there.
It's funny that the trajectory of it, I think all new platforms are this way, by the way. I mean, TikTok is just, I'll just use it as an example, but they all sort of evolve this way. TikTok was teen girls dancing, right? And then it moved up the chain, right? And this happens with everything. It starts with teens thinking it's cool. Facebook started with college kids, right? And it moved up to adults, and now your grandmom's on it, right? And they all have the same life cycle. But to your point, there is a lot of, I think people think of influencers as young kids dancing, and to some extent that is. But the reality is, if you like go a higher level, it's really just about having an audience and being able to command them to do things. And these algorithms are so good. Your point about niche is spot on. The algorithm learns you so well that instead of maybe in the past, be it a website or Facebook or a podcast, right, about casinos or casino gambling, right? Now you can take that like two steps down the ladder to be a guy, someone who enjoys a certain type of slots in Ohio, right? And the algorithm will find that person, and there's still enough people out there for you as an influencer to gain enough of a following to maybe make a living doing it. And so the nichification of stuff is huge. And to your point, just because it started out as teens doesn't mean, Facebook, then it was moms selling makeup on Facebook. Now it's everybody, right? You will eventually see.
Now it's my radicalized grandmother.
You will eventually see, and I'm sure you are already, but accountants talking about corporate, leveraged corporate buyouts on TikTok, because that's just where the attention is, and yeah, it might like leverage corporate buyouts in the grocery space, right?
Yeah.
There's probably thousands of people out there that's high value info for. And if it doesn't exist today, it might exist one day. And
my TikTok feed is a mess. I've got everything from Excel spreadsheet, Excel formulas, pimple popping. What was the other one? Something the other day. Yeah, like watches, like watch reviews. Like, so you can just it's just like Fintan's browsing history of stuff that's interesting to Fintan or caught my attention for more than 10 seconds. There's none of that, unfortunately.
I think the one platform that seems to be ready to go is Twitter and X. And when I say go to the next level, I mean, watching the growth of a small business attorney account just absolutely be everywhere, and understanding the nichification of that, how that goes into different industries, and then hearing what Elon is then bringing on. It feels like that platform is going to be in the same conversation with TikTok and Instagram in terms of creating live content, potentially taking payments, and being able to use it as a store to easily convert over. What I would love, my hope would be that it's something that's just not truly a tangible. Better way to say this: like, could you potentially have an affiliate link listed as a store item, that someone takes and uses? That I'm not sure, but it does feel like X is ready to go to that next level of growth as well within this conversation.
If it can keep the users, I think is the challenge.
Right.
So you see a lot of obviously there was a bunch of Twitter clones cropped up, and even Facebook's threads just hasn't really gone anywhere. LinkedIn has had an explosion. LinkedIn is the new Facebook, effectively. Just it's got your CV on it. So my only concern with Twitter will be is if it can retain its existing audience. But there's definitely some gambling affiliates doing serious business on Twitter still. It's a very viable platform. For sure. So
you mentioned Barstool's the best example, by the way. They work because they have a brand, and the partnership with DraftKings. I mean, listen, they took $500 million from Penn for free, basically, for a 2-year rental. I mean, it's insane. Credit to him, right? Right. But at the end of the day, it wasn't really money that was justified, right? Someone took a bet, and they were happy to be on the receiving end. But the DraftKings thing is great because it's real money for DraftKings. And I had a brief call with Portnoy. We had a brief encounter years ago, and I just kind of inquired about what they were doing, and he said there's no performance component of the DK deal. In fact, when I sort of explained the affiliate model, he glazed over because I don't even truly think. He's a smart guy, but I don't think he comprehended the ins and outs of actually the tactical thing of being an affiliate, ranking for SEO, conversion, funnels, CTAs, all that. And in his mind, it makes a ton of sense. Like, yeah, maybe they could have made twice as much as an affiliate, but think about the headache of all the SEO optimization they would have done and A/B testing. What color button to bet now and sign up here, or do you just keep doing what you're doing, be influential? And they've done that for like 2 decades now, and they've established with their audience that they're cool, and they're generally not for sale unless someone wants to give them $500 million, right? And their audience trusts them. And those guys sitting and betting with DraftKings all day, they may not function as a traditional affiliate where they're compelling someone to hit a button and sign up now. But that has that gets to the inside the core of their audience. And those people are just going to be compelled over time to be like, I'm going to use DraftKings because this is what Portnoy and Big Cat are using all the time.
For sure. And I just first of all, if there's anybody from Penn Gaming listening, sponsorships are available. Just before the board gets replaced.
Might as well see if we can get a ride on their private jet. It seems.
I hear that's.
We will do almost anything for such perks.
What was I going to say? So what was really interesting, there was a stat I saw recently where Bet365 was doing really well in a younger demographic in the US. So outside of the US, Bet365 is a behemoth and is the number one brand in pretty much every market, or at least number two. That's probably changing now with the crypto space and the likes of stake and stuff internationally in the more traditional gray markets, in inverted commas. But I think in the US, I think they've leaned in more into the social media affiliates than they have the SEO affiliates. And I think you can see that in the demographic. And I was just builds on your point, but I think there's a really interesting demographic difference there. So, the dads are searching on Google because they've seen the ad. The kids are on social and see the ad. So it's a different thing.
But suppliers are doing that as well. Light and Wonder have done that really, really well. I think Aristocrat are doing that really, really well.
In what way?
In they're realizing the power of speaking as close to directly to players as they possibly can. They know the value in a player going into a casino, or that they want somebody searching for their game. And that's super valuable because they know then that the operator's going to come to them and say, can I have, Light and Wonder, they're trying to transition to, and stop me if I'm wrong on this, but they're trying to transition to a content supply, just totally like a software business and all about, games. And so somehow they still think they're going to be worth $5 billion. Yeah. But they are harnessing social better than anybody, I think. And like I said, I'm pretty sure Aristocrat, I think it is doing something similar because they know the power of somebody walking into a casino and saying, "Shit, you haven't got Buffalo 12. I'm out of here."
But look, this is a very fair point. If I was a casino affiliate today, and I'm not, I would absolutely be racking my brains of how do I tap into the game providers' marketing budgets, not just the operators' acquisition budgets. And I think there's untold pots of gold lying around marketing departments around the world.
Shh, this is something I'm working on.
No, there's no doubt that the next leg up in affiliate approaches is upon us. I mean, the old school version of, hey, Wheel of Fortune just launched at BetMGM in 5 to 7 states online, and how would you approach that? That game and the tactics are rapidly changing from what it would have been a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's to the point of the influencer. I mean, this is to attack this on an SEO level.
It's impossible because
it's impossible.
Nobody's searching for the game.
Right.
Trust me, I've tried.
Exactly.
You've got to go, in a way, create the demand before you can capture it.
Exactly.
And I think it's like, honestly, if I was an SEO affiliate, I'd just be staring very hard at social media affiliates and figuring out who I could buy.
we've had this conversation with, folks over the last week or two in particular. And I agree. And I think the game's a really interesting way of looking at it, because sports betting, we always talk about the funnel, right? And sports has the full funnel covered, right? The games are top of funnel. ESPN is top of funnel. And then, if you want to define bottom of funnel and betting affiliate, it's the search for DraftKings promo code, right? Like you're right there at the bottom of the funnel. Casino, it's interesting because it's harder to define what that top of funnel is. Sports, it's very obvious. It's the games, it's the media. Casinos are more fragmented. There's no channel, generally speaking, that just casino players are watching every night at 8 o'clock the way they're watching sports, right? So I think just talking to operators over even the last 5 years, the holy grail is really cracking. How do you get that top of funnel and bring value to the casino space that isn't just squatting on Caesar's promo code, right? And I think the games and the influencer side is a really interesting way of talking about that. And you create demand up here, and then, you help create the demand, and then you also sit at the bottom to help harvest the demand. Very difficult to do, but that is the $100 million question if someone really figures it out correctly.
For sure. And I think if you look at the affiliate space, I think the Twitch streamers, or probably all on Kick now, whatever, that's I remember very early days, like, I'm going to stream playing slots on Twitch. And I'm like, nobody's going to watch that. That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my life. And boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. It's massive. But I think that's also I think it can still be done in a better way. I think there's more. I think we found one trick and we've exploited it to its extent. And I think I think there's a lot more opportunity there than people realize. Let's talk about herd capital. So what are you guys doing with herd capital? Have you invested in anything? What are you excited about? What are you looking at? What are you looking for?
Yeah. So, we kind of took about a year off after we left XL. Worked on a few smaller projects. I think we both really wanted to learn some things about what else was out there in digital media. We've been so myopically focused on what we just talked about for 5 years consecutively. But yeah, we figured, hey, there's still a lot of meat on the bone in I'd say sports media and sports gambling and gambling and affiliate, kind of the intersection of all those things. That if we've made some individual investments. We're both investors in Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, which is a really interesting sports adjacent media platform here in the US. I've acquired a newsletter. Jason started one. We've invested in some other smaller esoteric things. So we figured, hey, why don't we come together? Why don't we sort of pool some of these investments, pool some of our own money together, and try to generate some deal flow for ourselves by putting out content on what we know, which is frankly just all the shit we just talked about, right? Let's put this out each week. We had started doing it about a year and a half ago and didn't stick with it. And we kind of really regretted that. So now we're, sort of marrying ourselves to doing this on a weekly basis. And good things are already starting to happen. We've had some interesting opportunities put in front of us already. And we've done some consulting and advisory work on the side where we can still have a few non-compete things that have about a year left, but generally speaking, there's a lot for us to do. So we figure let's form herd capital, let's invest in some things, and take those consulting and opportunities, advisory opportunities where they come.
That was well said. I have nothing to add.
Fantastic.
I got nothing either. You maybe a little later in life, but not much later. Think about politics.
I have 15 years of sports blogging without an editor behind me. So if I ever ran for anything, we weren't Barstool, but in the early years, we joked and tried to offend just about everybody. So politics is out of the cards for me.
I've got
although
some
nowadays
in that arena too.
It might not matter. It might be a net positive these days.
Oh, for sure. It's just all attention is good attention, I think, is the current rule.
Yeah.
The world has changed quite a lot, and not for the better, really. I think
not yet. if we're being optimistic.
Yeah, totally that. Totally that. I want to just bring up something about, I think before we start recording, we were talking about the mangling of language. And Fintan, I think this is something that we've talked about this on the podcast before. And that's how a lot of Americans say niche for niche.
Mm.
And when rappers say it, they nearly always rhyme niche with bitch. But if you're a European rapper, you'll be saying niche, and there's not that much that rhymes with niche. But the rhyme that I thought of for niche, should I ever become a rapper, it's not though. That's a ch, not a sh. Sh. Would be microfiche, which is, of course, a valuable tool for librarians all over the world. So any European rappers listening, there's your rhyme.
You want your licensing when they work it in or something? Like what?
It would just make me really happy. I don't need any royalties. I've got form for giving away a lot of my best ideas, Fintan. Don't forget the weed killer phone call.
Choose your niche with microfiche. It's good.
I feel like if Succession was still on television, that I feel like that would have just been worked in some way, somehow by the writers. The niche and microfiche. There's a line there somewhere that Tom Wamgans would have worked in with Greg the Egg.
There's a certain magic there. It is just, oh, my cat's coming to meow a lot at me. Yeah.
It heard the niche.
That's it. He's a cat with a great appreciation for language. Both my pets know almost all of the swear words. Yeah, the weed killer story. Yeah, when I phoned the dude and I'm like, you got to have this. You got to use this.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I've forgotten what the punchline was, but yeah, I remember.
I'm trying really hard not to repeat stories on here because Fintan gets a bit tired of third or fourth telling.
But luckily I've got a really bad memory, so I remember there's a weed killer story, but I can't remember the punchline.
So right,
believe me, we have those as well. When Kyle says the words Allen Iverson, I now leave the room. So.
Ooh. So,
you guys want to hear the Allen Iverson story? That's
absolutely, because we've heard the weed killer story.
Do you guys know who Allen Iverson is?
Yes.
Are you guys familiar with Allen Iverson?
It was a bull, wasn't he?
He was a Sixer. A very famous basketball player here in the U.S. Cultural icon. Keeps it. Talk about guys who kept it real, right? So anyway, he was doing some work for Blonde? No, he's not blonde.
I'm just fucking
very braided. He did some work for PointsBet a few years ago. They hired him because they launched in PA, and he's a big face here. So went to an event. Long story short, went to an event. PointsBet invited Allen Iverson. I knew one of the guys there and got to tag along. And after the event, he said, "Hey, we might get to go hang out with Allen Iverson." Now, Iverson is a notorious sort of late night carouser he used to set up shop at the local bar the night before games. The stories of him are endless. And so he said, "Hey, we might have a chance to go out with Allen Iverson and his crew, right? And his posse." And this is, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for a guy who looks like me, right? So I said, "I'll take the night wherever it goes." So long story short is we wind up at Sugar House Casino. Not in Philadelphia, which is, it's now Rivers. This is not like some high rollers area, right? This is like the ground floor at a river casino in Philadelphia. And Allen Iverson is berating the roulette dealer as if the spinner, whatever the hell they call him, as if, he has any impact on the outcome. And I'm sitting there playing roulette with Allen Iverson. And I'm betting, $10 here and there. And he's betting 5,000, right? And just a really legendary night. But playing roulette with Allen Iverson drunk in the casino is a tale. There's certain parts I probably shouldn't say on the podcast, but it was a fun night.
We will save that for the live show. So we're keeping tally of every guest who can't talk about certain stories, and we're going to bring it all together in a live show. So
there you go.
We'll do that.
Sweet.
Or dinner, whichever happens first.
I like your optimism, Fintan. Gentlemen, I'm going to wrap things up there. Thank you very, very much for coming on. I was inspired to ask you guys on, even though Fintan did the asking, because I'm very shy. Because I got the newsletter and it made me chuckle, not in a kind of who the fuck are these jokers way, in a kind of because it's a very different perspective on things than what you normally. It's a poor person like me who's voicing their opinion. So that was very different.
Well, we're also trying to do business to business content with like some value of like tone and entertainment where it's not like completely snoozeworthy. I think that's important too.
There's a lot of that out there.
It resonates with us. I love the tone of voice and the style, the style you've got with, and you did like there was a previous newsletter where you had like the WhatsApp screenshots of the actual conversations and stuff as well, which
we're bringing that back. We're bringing that back.
I was a huge fan of that.
Yeah, we did one last Thursday like that. I think we're trying to do those on Thursdays. Yeah. But no, I define myself as terminally unemployable. I just can never work for someone again.
I can totally relate.
Yeah, if you ask the folks at XL Media, working with us, we accomplished a lot, but maybe we're combative. I mean, you're going to get our opinions, and I agree, John. I think that's what we're trying to bring. We want the newsletter to be kind of like the irreverent take, and if you meet us in person, I think we're a little more. Kyle's more polished. I don't know how I'll come across, but that newsletter is, hey, we're going to rip you a little bit. We're going to be very honest. We don't have to really worry about hurting people's feelings. So it's nice. It's good to be able to have that approach at this point in life. I'm with you, and it's fun to write, and it's fun to get reactions from folks, and you get a couple DMs on Twitter like, I can't believe you guys said that, but I totally agree. You're hitting the right spot.
That's it. No, I mean, we get messages from people saying, I'm so glad somebody's out there that's not holding back. That's just, even if we're wrong on those very rare occasions. But it's putting it out there in order to be wrong and being brave enough to have a fucking opinion. Yeah. It's not that difficult, I don't know. Maybe it would be difficult if I knew anything. I don't let ignorance hold me back. But Jason and Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Really best of luck with everything. And now you'll be called friends of the podcast, and you'll be asked back at some vague future point.
Thanks for having us. This was awesome.
Yeah, guys. Thanks for having us. It was a lot of fun.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Gambling Files podcast, please find us on LinkedIn. Give us a big, juicy, succulent like. That nearly went wrong. You can find us under the name The Gambling Files Podcast. You can find us on Twitter under The Gambling Files. I think the handle is just @GamblingFiles. You can connect to myself, John Bruford, or Fintan Costello, also on LinkedIn. We're also both on Twitter. And you can find all of our previous episodes at www.thegamblingfiles.com. If you enjoyed it, please share. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, and we'll see you next time.